Welcome to the James Rice Show, a humorous, entertaining, and sometimes thought-provoking look at teaching and studying abroad. Join the conversation as James guides you through his experiences and provides insights into how to improve your English and how to improve your teaching of English. And now, here's the man you've been waiting for, James Rice.
Coming up on this week's episode, who hates to read and who hates to teach reading? We will discuss why you should be reading comic books, which comic books are the best for English students, and you will meet a retired California principal whose new hobby is creating comic books for the English language learner. All coming up on The James Rice Show. Hello, students and fellow educators. Welcome to this week's episode of The James Rice Show. I am James, broadcasting from Toronto, Canada. And yes, the author of the Study It ESL textbooks, one of the authors. And I'm very grateful for all of those that are downloading and purchasing the Study It ESL textbook series. Thank you all very, very much. Go to the website, studyitbooks.com. They're best really used on Apple products. Yeah, so if you have an Apple iPhone or iPad or MacBook or anything like that, and you're a teacher looking for resources or a student, download those Study It textbooks. So today we are going to be taking a look at the best way to learn English. And what is the best way to learn English? Reading, right? Boring, right? Yeah, always. Why do teachers say to you, you have to read? You gotta read in English. You gotta read in English. Why is it so important? Well, when you were a child, how did you learn your language? Your mother or father probably read books to you. You probably started to recognize sounds and pictures from these books as a child, and you started to memorize words that matched those pictures. Also, if you have studied abroad and you return home to your country, you may be thinking, how can I keep my English level up? Well, it's tough. It's tough to do that because you're not using it. So I always recommend to students, read. Not necessarily the newspaper. If you want to, that's okay. But read something that you absolutely enjoy. Why? Because you will exercise your brain and you will think in English. You don't always lose your English when you return back to your country. It is still there in your brain somewhere. I mean, for example, I have not been to Japan for 20 years, and I went to Japan last year, and all this vocabulary bubbled back up into my brain. It was there. It was there, and I was very, very impressed with myself that I could remember a lot of the words. And as I started to hear people talking around me, I could recognize that vocabulary, and it was there. I just never used it. Your mind loses the ability to think and respond quickly, just like any other muscle. So if you don't use your brain muscle, you will lose it. You will lose your brain muscle. So reading is important, students and teachers. Agreed? But what to read? Always a challenge. And I hear often, reading is so boring. I can watch a movie and I don't have to read the book. True. That is true. And I do understand that opinion. But what about comic books or manga? Yeah, comic books are amazing. And you all know the most famous comic book publisher is Marvel. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Hulk, all comic books that I read when I was young. And did you know, here's a did you know, students and teachers, did you know that comic books were developed by Rudolfi Topfer in his schools? Not sure if I got that name pronunciation correct. But they were developed in his schools to help students learn to read. Yeah, that's why we have comic books today. They were designed to help you read. The pictures in the comics helped students understand the context of the story. And it was a way to learn new vocabulary. It was a way to learn new idioms. And, they were more fun than the regular books. That's why we have comic books. And today, we're going to be talking to Paul Joseph Hamill, who is a retired high school principal from California. And he's creating comic books for English learners and giving them away completely free right now for teachers and students to use. Now, I was so inspired after talking with him and meeting with him that I have used comic books and creating comic books in my class. They worked so well. Yeah, I got students to create a comic book for me. And one student was so inspired, he created this Marvel Universe comic where I was Thor, and Thor was me, and we became Thor somehow. And I didn't really understand it, but he had to explain it all to me. It all made sense in his mind, but I didn't understand it, and it kind of made me feel old. But all of that was brilliant English practice. He created it. He created the story. He had to explain the story. And I just sat back and I was amazed at how well he had used the comic books to share his thoughts, share his opinions, and to use his English. It was fantastic. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to take a break. And after the break, I'm going to give you some of my top picks for the best comic books for you to read and practice your English. All right? And then we will meet Paul Joseph Hamill. All coming up on The James Rice Show.
Have you downloaded the Study It ESL textbooks yet for your classroom? The Study It textbooks are the first ever digital and interactive textbooks. Once downloaded, Wi-Fi is no longer required. Each book contains video and audio exercises, detailed grammar keynotes, reading and writing assignments, and amazing speaking projects. Grammar, conversation, pronunciation, business English, and listening textbooks are available. Visit www.studyitbooks.com for more information. Okay, students, it's time for your English tip of the week.
Comic books are an amazing way to improve your English, improve your reading skills, and improve your vocabulary. Now, which comic books are the best to learn? All right, I'm going to start at the beginner level and work my way up to some advanced comic books that I recommend to you. All right, students, let's start with something called Sketch Monsters. So if you are at a beginner level or you know someone at a beginner level, take a look at Sketch Monsters. All right, it's a story about a young girl named Mandy who doesn't like to share her feelings, so she draws them in a notebook. All right, and what it is very good for is helping students to understand basic English vocabulary about emotions, about feelings. It has objects that you find in schools and homes. So it's very, very good for developing some basic vocabulary. Now, if you're looking for something for that beginner to intermediate student, maybe the pre-intermediate student, and maybe somebody who's got a bit more of a fantasy feeling behind their personality, maybe you want to take a look at Bone, B-O-N-E. And it's a little strange. It is not about your body, but it is about cousins. The main characters of this comic are the cousins. They get lost when exploring a forest, and they go through many, many adventures together, and they have to fight many dangers and overcome a lot of different challenges. So it's quite a fantastic kind of comic book. Now, a little bit more traditional, 1980s comic book that was very, very popular when I was young, Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes. Now, the comic is a story about a young boy named Calvin who plays with his imaginary friend named Hobbes. Yeah, and Hobbes is a tiger or a kind of stuffed animal tiger. But to Calvin, Hobbes is real, and they go on adventures together into the real world, and they try to solve lots of different problems. And it is a great series with a lot of great vocabulary, and it's very easy and quick to read. So you can learn a lot about the culture of North America, for example, especially the U.S. where it's set, and you'll learn about the adult world, some of that adult vocabulary from a child's point of view. So very good series that was designed in the 80s, still relevant today. Next, Archie. Yeah. So if you guys watch Netflix, you probably know a Netflix series called Riverdale. Yeah. Riverdale is basically Archie comic books. Archie comic books have been around for a long time. Now, it is good for an intermediate level. So I should say you should be at a little bit of a higher level, not for beginners. So we're moving into the intermediate level now. And it is set in the town of Riverdale. That's the town. And Archie and his high school friends, Betty and Veronica, they're dating and dating stories, and they have different situations in terms of meeting bad guys at high school, good guys at high school. There's a band and music and a love triangle between all of the characters, and it kind of talks about what life is like in an American high school. And it is very, very good for picking up some idiomatic expressions, some vocabulary. It's great when we're talking about dating and partying and eating and just general talking. So it's a very good series. Obviously, they've transformed it into Riverdale, so you can compare the comic to the Netflix series Riverdale. All right, another intermediate one, Garfield, yeah. And it's Garfield is an orange cat, and he's very, very famous. It's actually, it holds a Guinness World Record for the most distributed comic book in the world. All right, so it is seen around the world, and it is a story about a lazy cat named Garfield and his owner, and they're talking about general topics such as the eating habits of Garfield, maybe his diet is often a big one. And his friend John, who is in the comic, is somebody who is shown as kind of somebody with poor social skills. So a lot of jokes are about his inability to get a date. All right, as one joke they do. So there's also a movie, a Garfield movie, as well, connected to this comic book. So it is great, again, for idiomatic expression. So really recommend Garfield. Now, one of my favorites is Peanuts. Peanuts. I read this all the time when I was a child, created by Charles Schulz. Such a great series. It started in the 50s, and it lasted for 50 years. I mean, I think it ended in the 2000s or early 2000s. And it's Charlie Brown. You guys probably know the name Charlie Brown and his friends. And Snoopy, you all know Snoopy the dog. That was from Peanuts. There are no adults in this comic book, but the stories are adult related, and they deal with a lot of different topics. It's very short, all right, so you can get longer comic books, but it is very short. It's very simple. It's very easy language for you to understand, and it is real life in many, many ways, and so many movies, YouTube shows you could probably find. They've made about Charlie Brown and the Peanuts gang. And in fact, the Charlie Brown Christmas is one of the most famous Peanuts TV shows out there. So you should probably catch that one too. It's a great way to know a little bit more about the characters, Lucy, Snoopy, all of those great characters that have been developed over 50 years. So highly recommend Peanuts. All right, advanced students. What I recommend, what I read when I was young, and what many kids read when they were young, Spider-Man. I know. He is, of course, really, really super famous, like Batman, Superman, all of those. But Spider-Man is a bit different because, Batman is Bruce Wayne and rich and kind of a dark story, and Superman is an alien, so we don't really understand him. But Spider-Man is he's just a teenager, and it's set in kind of real life New York City, and it talks about responsibility and duty. There are many kind of real life stories built around his high school days, his love life, and how to learn and live in American society. Now, there are a little bit, sometimes some science vocabulary in there, but it is very, very realistic in terms of what life is like for a teenager. And that's why I think out of all of the Marvel characters, Spider-Man is probably the most accessible, the easiest one for people to understand, such as you, the English language learners. In fact, I was watching Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., in an interview, and they asked Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., who is your favorite Spider-Man character other than Iron Man, obviously? Who is your favorite Marvel character, rather, other than Iron Man? And he said Spider-Man. He said Spider-Man was his favorite because he is the most human. He is the one that we can all connect with. So, those are some comic book considerations for you to read. So get out there, download them, find them, buy them, watch them on YouTube, and start reading your comic books now.
Subscribe to The James Rice Show on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or iHeartRadio. Don't miss an episode.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am very pleased to welcome Paul Joseph Hamill from Hamill Publications, the creator of Everyday English comic books. And they are so amazing. Welcome, Paul. Welcome to the James Rice Show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, I got to say, your comic books are incredibly awesome. I really love them. And I was a big comic fan, not of the Avengers, not of Marvel or Spider-Man, but of Beetle Bailey. Now, some of the listeners and readers out there may not know who Beetle Bailey was, but that was my favorite comic as a kid growing up. And the drawings that you have are very simple of daily life situations. So what was your inspiration for these comics?
Well, I wrote a series in 1984 called Better English Every Day. And Frank Ridgway, who is a comic, he was a very famous comic. And I learned through him. He illustrated the books, and I did part of the illustrations with him. And over the years, I just learned to do it. And that's how I get involved with that. The comic books.
I'm just showing here the comic books to everybody, so you can see what we're talking about. Go ahead, Paul.
They parallel the book series that I wrote, and the book series is for adults that are learning ESL and who are basically they want to get a job. This is a ESL for jobs, really. I was a school principal for LA Unified School District for many years, and I worked for them for almost 30, 40 years. And I developed that series when I was there because I also worked at an occupational center, and students needed to learn English to go to work. So that was the whole point. So when I retired, I said, well, let's change it a bit. And so I just took the basic story and I improved it, and I redid the series, and I called it English for a Better Job. And then I said, let's do a comic book series with that as well. Also, I needed something to do, and I love doing comics, so that was how it came about. Also, I just wanted to share it with the public. I'm a sharer.
Right.
That's one of the things I do is my other books, when I show them online, I always make sure that there's something that I give away for free, a chapter or a lesson. Even if people can't buy the book, they can at least follow me, and they can download them little by little. And over the time, they can get most of the books.
Yeah, no, that's great. Absolutely. That's fantastic. And just for the listeners to the podcast, we are recording this and we'll be uploading it onto the Facebook page so you can see visually what we're talking about. And Paul, I got to say though, why comics? Because, all of the books out there, they're the textbooks, they have these visuals and pictures, but nobody's got comics out there. Why did you decide comics as the means of
comics? Comics, they're not dated. You find a textbook that's was published in the 1980s or 90, and the clothing and the surroundings, it's dated. So comic books are not dated. You could use them today. You can use them 50 years from now. So that's one way of getting the grammar point or the subject matter across, and not not be bothered by all that extraneous material. Many books look very flashy, colorful, things like that. Also, if people want to copy it, a Xerox machine, they can make a copy of it, and it's just a very simple way of presenting the material.
What was your favorite comic growing up?
Oh boy, I guess Lucy, Nancy. I like them all. I still do.
Yeah.
I have a storeroom, and the walls are just pasted with comic books from the Sunday newspapers.
So if you're on a desert island, only one comic book, who would you bring? What would you bring?
Mine, of course, yes.
Okay, other than yours.
Well, I don't know. The other side?
The other side. Okay, I remember that one. Yeah. That was a good one. That's kind of daily life, and that's what your comics also have, that feel of a daily life situation.
Well, these are competencies that they cover competencies that people need in daily life. And that was the whole point, is to present something that is going to be relevant in people's daily life. And also, since this is geared to adults, also young adults, high school students, definitely. And as for elementary, I'm not too sure about that. Some aspects of it is, but it's really geared toward adults.
But you mentioned some teachers could use it for coloring and sort of
a coloring book. You use these for out of classroom activities. Homework. Give it to them for homework and take them, go home. Another thing about these comic books, and I've taught ESL for 50 years. And one of the things is that, in this also probably in the classroom, when you do reading, when people read aloud, the reading aloud is really not, if you're reading a textbook aloud, it's not usually what people do in real life. So I want to present the language that is actually spoken. So even in class, if you take the comic book and you have people read it, that's real spoken language.
Yeah. And also one of the interesting points that I often tell students is they ask me, how can I improve my English? What's the best way to improve my English? What should I do? And you have to read, students. You have to read.
Right.
From a baby, your parents read to you books. You learn your language naturally by reading. And reading you can do anywhere, in any country, at any time. But you need to read books that interest you. And comic books are absolutely one of the best tools for reading, because sometimes I see them reading a newspaper. Why are you reading a newspaper? Come on, you can read a comic book and just as well enjoy what's going on and the action and the visuals, and you've got idioms and expressions, so much going on. So what do you think about that?
No, I totally agree. I think you do both, not just one or the other, but both are important, because people are going to have to read text, news or interest stories or history. That's necessary for learning. But to pick up the language of spoken language, that was my point. That's why I did this, is to present that. And also the subtleties, like there and there. There's a whole chapter on that, on when to use THEIR and THEY apostrophe RE. It's playful. And I used to play on words as well.
Now, How do the comics work? Are they based on levels? Are they based on grammar, certain themes?
Well,
Could you explain that?
that was a hard thing because there are, number one is their competencies that are used. And let me get one here, for example. We'll just pick one. Chapter 12. I mean, first of all, the skills and competencies. Like this one is describing a basic home and work activities. Then I embed grammar into it. And this particular one is present continuous and the future with going to. And then there's also vocabulary and expressions. So I tried to take the competencies, the grammar, and the vocabulary expressions and put it all together into a storyline so that it's embedded into it. So they're not only, a story, but there's also in that story embedded the grammar. And that would support a lesson that someone is doing with maybe going to or the present continuous. This is also, I did it as a supplementary material. It's not, it can be used alone, but it's also to help in addition to what people are already using. Because teachers have their own textbooks or they're given textbooks, they're assigned textbooks. I was principal for many years and, we bought textbooks for the students. I mean, I had 7,000 ESL students per year. And, teachers decided as a group which textbooks we would use. And then, of course, we would buy them. But we always needed supplementary materials. And that's what my focus was on, supplementary materials, things that people could use in addition to what they already were given or told to use.
Right. And they're fantastic supplementary materials. And I'm just wondering, kind of through my thought process, what has been the reaction to the comics by students and perhaps by teachers as well? Have you got any feedback? Because I'm wondering, everybody's on their device. Everybody's texting and using interactive content and all of this multimedia kind of stuff out there. And here you are showing up with comic books.
Well, it's fairly new. I only started doing this within the last year.
Okay.
And, I'm one of these people, I just can't sit and watch television all day. I have to be doing something. So I thought I would just do this. When I got them out on online, I do my texting. I sent out a text. What is a post every day having to do with something of my material. But since this virus, I said, I need to give something back here because teachers are at home, they're online. And maybe this can help them since they can't buy the book. So that's why I'm doing one episode, every couple of days. So it's been wonderful. I mean, people have been reacting wonderfully and they've been sharing all the better. And, it's my pleasure to give it. I mean, they're for sale, but, I have enough money to last me the rest of my life. This is gravy, and this is just something I want to give back. I
think for teachers and students who are maybe watching and thinking about the comic books themselves, I think that it's a nice balance because we are now obviously entering a new phase of education where we are going to be online more. There's going to be more blended learning and getting a tool like this where you can download the content that's a bit more traditional. Maybe what teachers will be looking for because they're going to fill their minds with, the technical stuff. And now we need to go look at how can we do the blended learning? How can we bring a little more of the tradition back into the classroom? Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is the future. I'm totally convinced of that. And I've been convinced of that for a long time. This is not something new.
Right.
And also there's an ebook, there's an e-copy of this also on Amazon. So people want the e-copy.
Yeah, and you can download it on Kindle. I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, right. And you know how much money I make off of these?
No, well, I saw
about 50 cents a book.
Oh, 50 cents a book from Amazon, yeah.
That's okay.
They take a lot of money. Amazon takes a lot of money. I publish my own textbooks as well. The Amazon is it's big, but they take a lot of money from us writers out there.
That's the only way I can get this thing out, really, because I really don't want to spend a lot of money. Not I don't care about the money. A lot of time doing this on my own. I do this as an individual. I don't have a support group of people that are helping me. I do it myself, and I know how to do it. I've been doing it for a long time, and I have. I'm very grateful that I can do it, and I'm very happy to be able to share.
And how can people download it? They can get it on Amazon, but also you have a website as well.
I have my website also called Paul Joseph Hamill Publications, also on my have it on there. And what I do is I share my not my text, what is the word I'm looking for? My blog or whatever it's called, to about 80 different ESL organizations around the world. It takes me about 20 minutes to do that. And I just put it out there. People want it, they're more than welcome to use it. And I always make sure whatever I'm advertising the books, I make sure I always give something away for free. And that's the important part.
Now, I'm very inspired by you, Paul, because honestly, when we talked, I thought you were a much younger man starting out in the industry and trying to make a name for himself or herself as an ESL teacher. And that we never met before. This is our first time to meet. And you are not the teacher that typically would be doing this type of work. And what would you say to teachers out there who are stressed out by all of this technology and all of this change going on? What would be your message to them who maybe are listening going, what should I do? Throw my hands up with these classes? And I've heard a lot of teachers very upset, crying, worried, stressed out by they're being forced to change their style. And here you are kind of embracing the style out there. What would you...
Well, I'm 74 years old. I've been doing this for 50 years. And day at a time.
But you haven't been doing comic books for 50 years. You've only done it for 1 year, just last year. You don't have to do it. And there are teachers who are younger, starting out, fresh, new, looking for ideas. And here you are saying to the world, hey, here's my comic book. Enjoy. It's for free.
Well, it's something I've been, all the material I've been gathering for all that time, and now I'm just putting it all together. A variety is the spice of life. I like variety. As for new teachers, concentrate on lesson planning, how to get things across. I heard one of your podcasts with, I guess, a Russian person, and I loved your answers. Of how you responded to that about techniques and things like that. Your bag of tricks, I guess. You have to develop a bag of tricks, and you can't use them all at the same time. And you have to have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And, over a period of time, you collect, and you get better as you go along. And just collect stuff, trial and error is a lot of good. That's what you're going to have to do, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. Trial and error, whether you like it or not, teachers out there, you're going to have to do it and try some new techniques and new ideas. And that's what I saw when I saw the comic books. I thought, wow, this would be fantastic to use in a class, and even as an inspiration to get students to create their own comic books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've sold some to Canada. I know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that's fantastic.
Well, I have a soft spot for Canada. My family's from Canada.
Oh.
From Quebec.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm Canadian writing English books.
That's fantastic. And then you moved down to the USA.
Well, I was born here. My mother's Canadian.
I see.
Yeah, but I have close contacts with my family up north.
Up north. All right. Yeah. Well, we are all jealous of your Hawaiian shirt. That's for sure.
Palm Springs.
Yes. What's the difference?
Heat, I guess. Right now it's 100 degrees outside, and I'm staying inside. I'm working on some home improvements. I've been, but
keeping busy.
Other than that, No, I love living here. I really do. It's a very nice place. It's great for older people. Also, when I retired from the school district, when I was a regional principal, um, I didn't want to just stop. So what I did is I went to UCLA and I taught 3 years at the American Language Center for UCLA. And
Wow.
I developed, this is where it started as well. Then when I came to Palm Springs, I said, I just can't sit around. So I went to the College of the Desert and I taught level 1 ESL.
Which is a rewarding level.
Yes, it is.
For me, it's really one of the most rewarding levels. Some people find it very boring and challenging, but for me, when ESL 1 works and you send them out of the nest, I guess, It's fantastic. It's a fantastic feeling.
Yeah, it is wonderful. That's really enjoyed it. And again, after many years of being an administrator of a very large ESL program, I went back into the level 1 program, and my bag of tricks, I couldn't carry it. It was so big. So that's when I started picking out the best things and started using them. And then I put them into another series of books, like this.
ESL worksheets. ESL worksheets.
Worksheets with lesson plans. I mean,
all laid out.
I've been sharing those with people as well. And I would just tell people that, look at my post, and if you like it, just download it. Because what I also do when I put it out there, I make high quality copies. It's not just if you download it and print it out, you're going to see it's not blurry.
Right.
It'll be nice and crisp and clean. So that's my, and again, black and white. Make it simple. We don't need all the fluff. I mean, it's nice to have a textbook series with a lot of pictures and, one I used at the College of the Desert here. I'm not going to say which one it was, but, there were a lot of pictures of people that were very outdated already.
Right.
And also situations that didn't pertain to everyday life, which students need.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. And again, it's you can visit hamillpublications.com. You can see the books. You can download some free content there, and on Facebook as well. Follow Paul Joseph Hamill and Hamill Publications, and you got to try these teachers and students as well. You got to try them. They're great little comic books for you to learn from and learn some great expressions. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Have you subscribed to James's newsletter? When you subscribe, you will receive a free Study It ESL textbook. Visit www.thejamesriceshow.com for more information and join today.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the James Rice Show, and a fascinating interview. And one of the things that Paul mentioned was how out of date ESL textbooks are, and that's the printed model of the ESL textbooks. And one of the things that I'm most proud of with the Study It ESL textbooks is how we have modernized the textbooks. The photos are fairly modern, the videos are modern, so it's not like you're looking at something made from 20 years ago. And I think it's more dynamic when students can see textbooks or comic books that are more colorful, more fun, more interesting, and I think we've done that with Study It. So check it out, studyitbooks.com, for those that want to study, or if you're looking for new teaching materials, especially if you're a Zoom teacher. So check those out because it's great on Zoom. It works really, really well with Zoom if you're doing Zoom classes online. Now then, we're going to move on to who's listening to the James Rice Show. Yeah, our top countries, and we have a new number one in a big, big way, and that is Hungary. Yeah, number one listener this week from Hungary, and we actually jumped up into the top 100 podcast in Hungary to number 67. Wow! So I'm very thankful to my Hungarian friends for tuning in and listening to us. A lot from Budapest, so that's fantastic. Number 2 is Canada. Number 3, Russia. All right, fantastic. Russia. Number 4, United States. Number 5, Japan. Next, number 6, Korea. 7, Brazil. My Brazilian friends, what's going on? Number 8, Mexico. 9, Saudi Arabia. And then in 10th place was France. So very wonderful to see Hungary in our first place. First time ever to have Hungary as our number 1 listener. So that's quite new and interesting. So don't forget, everyone, we have podcasts on Tuesday, which are our IELTS tip of the week. And Wednesday, English is Crazy. Love the English is Crazy. Last week we did one on Steve Jobs and why Apple is called Apple. So make sure you check that out. Thursday, Teacher Talk. Friday, Apply Wave. The Apply Wave girls, Mackenzie and Lisa, stopped by to talk about studying abroad and their tips, brought to you by applywave.com. So if you're looking to study abroad, check out ApplyWave for some great schools. And then on Saturday, the free English lesson. Yeah, we've got a free English lesson for you on Saturday. And thank you, everyone, for continuing to listen to The James Rice Show. And I hope you have a great week, everyone. And we'll see you next Monday for our new episodes, fresh episodes. And I hope you will always, always remember to be crazy.
Thanks for listening to The James Rice Show. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and send us your questions or comments at www.thejamesriceshow.com.